All right, hello and welcome. So in this practice, we're going to work on really grounding into our bodies, calming our nervous system, and just kind of like settling in and snuggling in. So hopefully this practice feels like a nice little hug. I have all the props, as you can see. I've got a couple of blankets. I have a bolster. If you don't have a bolster, you're at home, you can use 1 or 2 bed pillows, or you can even use like couch cushions. And then I have 2 blocks here total available. I'm probably only going to need 1. And then I also have my koosh ball. A koosh ball is a very random thing to own, so if you don't have a koosh ball, you can use like a small rolled up sock. I've used a cat toy when I've been at home doing this, and really this is just gonna serve as a little feedback mechanism. So if you don't have a koosh ball or a small soft object, that's okay. All right, so we're gonna start in hero's pose on the block. So I'm gonna bring my block to its lowest height, and I'm gonna sit at its widest width underneath my bum. And then we are going to identify our perineum, so that's the that space between our vaginal opening and our anus, and we're gonna place our small soft object right in that space. And you can bring your hands to wherever they feel comfortable, maybe on your thighs, or maybe kind of like joined together in your lap. And again, the purpose of this small object here is for us to be able to learn how to breathe into our pelvic floor. So as we inhale, we're gonna hopefully find that space of our perineum kind of like lowering into the koosh ball. And then as we exhale, it can kind of stay relaxed and released. So let's just do that a couple of times. Inhale into your koosh ball. And exhale. And then inhale. And exhale. And you can keep breathing. Oftentimes for those of us with vaginismus, some of us are what are known as reverse breathers. And so when we breathe in, we might actually end up holding it up into our chest space rather than letting it flow all the way down. And so having the koosh ball there, or the small soft object, is just a really great way to remind ourselves to breathe all the way down into our pelvic bowl and then to soften as we exhale. So we'll just do that for a little bit longer. Inhale and exhale. Inhale and exhale. And if you are liking this exercise, you can stay here for as long as you need, or feel free to just kind of take this as an exercise that you do for 3 to 5 minutes in the morning before you continue with your day, or maybe before bed. All right, so we are going to move on to child's pose. So for our child's pose, I'm going to be using a bolster. Before I get the bolster in place, I'll show you why exactly we're using it. So a lot of us with vaginismus, not all by any means, but many of us kind of struggle with this like pelvic tilt rib flare situation where our ribs want to flare outward and our pelvic bowl will tilt back. And it's okay to maintain that pelvic bowl tilt. That's actually natural for us, but we want to make sure that we're not flaring the ribs forward, because this ends up putting a lot of pressure on our diaphragm, and it actually restricts the breath from getting all the way down into our pelvis. And so when we're in child's pose, if you're in a common yoga class, you might be in a child's pose where they'll say spread your knees wide and relax your belly in between your thighs. And for someone like me who has a lot of rib flare, and maybe like you, this is just like asking for me to like let my ribs kind of drop forward and find that place of restricted movement. And so in order to prevent that, I'm going to bring a bolster into play. So I'm going to bring the bolster in between my knees. I'm actually also going to take a folded blanket and place it underneath my hips. And this is going to, as I come forward into child's pose, my hips might want to lift up a little bit, especially if I'm not letting my body find that place where it wants to go with that kind of like rib flare. And so this just provides a sense of cushion and stability. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to bring myself forward, and I'm going to gaze to the side. And so you can see that my back is pretty straight here. And again, I'm just letting my body just kind of melt into my bolster. And if you're in a situation where you don't have a bolster or a pillow to work with, you can always bring your knees together and take your child's pose from there. And I'm starting to move my breath into my low back. And again, down into my perineum, seeing if I can find that same sensation that I did just moments ago without my feedback mechanism. So breathing in, letting my pelvic floor move downward. And breathing out, letting everything soften and melt just a little bit deeper. And if you had one cheek down, you can kind of reverse sides, bring the other cheek down. And feel free to stay here, or you can gently start to walk yourself back up. Now we'll be taking a half child's pose after this. I'm going to move some of my props to the side. And I'm going to keep the bolster available to me. Again, for the same reason, I want to be able to keep my back long rather than kind of like crunching and arching into my lower back. So for half child's pose, I'm just going to bring my right foot out, and I'm going to keep my right toes pointing forward. Move my props to make sure you can see that. And then I'm going to set my hips back. And you know what? I'm actually going to keep my blanket here. I think that would feel really nice. So I'm going to keep my blanket there to give myself a little bit of cushion as I sit back. And then same story. I'm just going to let my upper body rest on the bolster as I sink my hips back. And this is really nice because it gets into my groin area and my inner thigh while maintaining a sense of internal rotation in my hip and my leg. And same story, we're just breathing into our pelvic floor, maintaining that sense of openness. And seeing if you can soften just a little more with every exhale. And just a few more breaths here. And gently start to lift yourself away from your bolster, and then we'll switch sides. I'm just going to take a moment to kneel just to kind of like recalibrate. And then extend the left leg long. Again, my toes are pointing straight forward. And I'm just going to find a relaxed position on my bolster. And if you'd like to stay there a little while longer, you can. And then again, just start to walk yourself up. I'm going to remove my blanket. And then we're going to find a seated position. So I'm going to bring my bolster to the side. Now, when we're finding a seated position, in female bodies, our hips are naturally a little bit more externally rotated than in male bodies. And so seated positions like this can feel really good and they can feel really natural. Sometimes we kind of find that our hips are really tight though, and they actually want to, our knees want to stay up, and this may or may not feel relaxing to us. So if this doesn't feel good to us, we can do a couple of things. The first is we can sit on a block or a blanket. So if we have our block, maybe even 2 blocks, we can sit here. And I personally, when I'm on a block, rather than being truly cross-legged, I just like to find the space where both of my ankles can rest on the ground. We can also, block or no block, we can bring blankets or blocks underneath our knees. In order to give us a little bit of support, we can also use bolsters underneath our knees. And so I recommend using as many props as you feel like you may need in order to feel truly supported and to be in a space where your hips can truly relax. If that's not possible for you in this position, you can always find hero's pose, which is how we started this class, with knees together, feet behind us, kind of more in that kneeling position, and stacking 1 or 2 blocks. All right, the last thing that we'll be doing today is we're just going to explore swaying. So I'm going to bring my hands to my knees, and all we're going to do, again, nothing too crazy here, is literally sway side to side. And if you like, you can close your eyes. And if closing your eyes doesn't feel great in your body, you can also soften your gaze, maybe look at one specific object in your space. Maybe something that's very lovely, maybe a bouquet of flowers or your favorite painting or maybe a pet. You can sway as big or as little as feels good in your body. And then just notice how this feels. I find that there's something so calming and so soothing about finding a sway. And I'm personally going through a season where I don't even really sit still to meditate. I feel like I have to sway. It feels just so much better for me right now. And so I just offer you that option. If you're ever taking one of my classes in IQ stillness, or if you're in a public class, don't be afraid to just do what you need to do and find movement if you need it. And we'll just be here for a few more breaths. And start to slow down your movements. Open your eyes if you close them. And we'll just take one last breath together. Big inhale and exhale. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next class.